Good morning, everybody. We seem to have sorted out our identities right now. I think everybody's got the right signs in front of them and so on and so forth to help you identify who's up here. Now, the reason I'm here is because I played around for a little while with social media. I've been an enthusiastic learner through blogs and a number of other things. So for me, this is a privilege to be able to interact with a large number of people who are shaping the destiny of our country, shaping governance and the way that we as citizens can be heard, can participate, can be involved in decisions, be involved in policy. What I thought I would like to start off with is to ask each one of you in turn to very briefly describe your own your first exposure to social media, and very briefly at the end of each, take a couple of minutes each, your first exposure to it, and if you could summarize your experience in a line, I'd be very grateful.
Thank you. I must say that I come to the table with the zeal of the recent convert. I was very familiar with social media through my daughter and my wife, who were always on Facebook, but I tried to stay away from it for a couple of years. And then when I came into my present job, which is about a year and a half back, I realized to my horror that I was heading the public diplomacy division, but most of what we were doing, maybe 99% of what we were doing, was subconsciously aimed at people like us. And there was very little that we were putting out consciously which was aimed at an under 30 generation. So I made my 25-year-old daughter my target, and I said, how do I get into her space? Obviously social media would have to play a key role in that. And our experience in the 9 or 10 months since we first started our Twitter channel and then Facebook and YouTube for the Public Diplomacy Division, I say has been extremely rewarding, and it's something that I feel that not only we need to build upon, but in the context of developments that we see around us in Egypt or elsewhere, I think it's almost obligatory for government to engage using social media and understand the medium. Otherwise, you'll have a situation where you won't even know what's hit you. So I'm a great fan of it, I'm a great believer, and I think that we've created an initial platform that we need to build upon.
I too would agree with Navdeep. We are also very recent converts. In fact, during the first phase of the census, we did not use the social media platform. It is only recently that we did use it, and quite effectively. Are we fully ready for it? Are we mature? I would not say totally. It's still work in progress. But we have made a beginning, and the results have been mixed. I would share it in my presentation later on. Thank you.
Recently, we thought of creating a piece of legislation to make it mandatory for all government departments to deliver services only in electronic mode from a fixed date. And that date is to be decided by the concerned department of the ministry. So we are in the process of creating that piece of legislation. And you must be knowing that the Prime Minister has created a Facebook, and he is on the Facebook. And only yesterday, I got to know that our draft legislation has been put up on that. And I was amazed to see the responses on that Facebook. There is a plethora of responses from public. And before it was put up on the Facebook, we had circulated this draft to all the state governments and to all mission leaders in the e-governance ecosystem. And we didn't get more than 2 or 3 responses. But once it was put up on the Facebook, that too of the Prime Minister, we have got huge number of responses. I won't remember the number, but it's in few hundreds. It's fantastic. And it has been put up recently, only maybe last week kind of thing. And the response is phenomenal, and we are getting all kinds of responses. Some people are supporting us, some people are opposing it, some people are suggesting new ways of doing things, and they are suggesting new provisions in the draft legislation, and it's fantastic. And I'm sure that if we go in for this kind of a participatory governance with the help of social media, things are bound to improve. There is no doubt about that. Thank you.
Presently, I am engaged with developing a proposal for social media policy for the government of Gujarat. But the question of Peter, my first interaction, when I was health secretary a little while ago, and there was outbreak of swine flu, I found that simple use of SMS with the press and electronic media made their response positive towards us. I had developed a group on my mobile which will tell at a precise time in the evening as to how many people across the whole state were suffering, diagnosed, treated and discharged of swine flu. And I found that for the first time, the entire media across the state started reporting the same figure of people at different stages of swine flu. Now you'd recall that earlier and in many other cases, there is always a dispute in media about the total number of people dying, with the typical accusation against the government that the government is hiding the actual number of deaths. Be it an accident, be it a natural calamity, nothing man-made by the government, be it an epidemic, but government is typically accused of hiding the figures of the death as if it's the government which is the cause of the death. So I found that communicating openly can, and that is what is collaboration with media. Collaboration with media was a very positive factor, and then I got exposed to Facebook. Of course, today we consider Facebook or Twitter as the only avatars of social media. Social media is, it's emerging from Web 2.0, and which is a technology which is not recent. The technology has been there for some time. It's just that the ubiquitousness of the internet, particularly in the urban areas, has brought to our awareness a platform which can engage people having access to the net in the process of governance. Later, I would talk about the issues relating the governance. Thank you.
I'm Shashank Oja, and I'm working with the e-government practice of the World Bank. I must confess that I am also a recent convert, although I have been working in this domain for last 20 years. First 10 years in the private sector and in management consulting, and last 10 years with the World Bank and working with our government counterparts and partners. And I come from a hardcore finance and technology background, and I have always been a strong believer that it's the organizational policies, it's the technologies within the organization which really matter in terms of delivering services, in terms of productivity, in terms of bringing a change. But over the last few years, I have now realized that unless you actually involve people, the impact which you can see from any initiative is limited. If you're doing very, very internal functions to the organization, I think then I'll actually just like to refer you to the theory of technology determinism, which says that technology impacts the way we work. And I was actually a firm believer of that. But over the years, I think there are now new theories which say it's not technology, it's the society which decides which technologies to choose and implement, and there are others which are not implemented. And therefore, it becomes very important that the society adopts a technology. There are many technologies which are invented and which fall by the side. And the people, the technology, we as society decide not to use it, and therefore there is no use of those technologies. So I think it's very important, and now I am a very firm believer that unless we bring the society, and in that process, the social media plays a very, very important role.
I'm Pavan Dugal. I'm an attorney in the Supreme Court. I work in cyber law. All I can say is I'm just a student in the social media university. I'm just about seeing how things are emerging. A lot of my clients are helping me see that. And I think I get a feeling of being a sense of a part of history being made. Social media is creating a new kind of a niche, a new kind of a space. And as it creates history, one of the biggest challenges are how to look at the various legal, regulatory and policy issues around social media. Most of the people, or 8 out of 10 in social media who are active in this space, often do not have a perception that there could be legal consequences for what you do on social media. And more importantly, social media is like a juggernaut where whatever data you put in is going to be there forever when whatever state of mind you are in. So we are seeing some very interesting evolution of jurisprudence, and I am just watching that and hoping to contribute to that. Thanks.
There are two types of people in the world. Those who were born in the last 2 decades, also known as digital natives, and those who were born prior to that, and they are digital immigrants. I'm sort of at the cusp. I was born, obviously, more than 20 years ago, but my job as running a digital advertising agency requires me to be exposed to this environment, to the digital medium, to social media, and that's how my journey has sort of been in this space. And today I'm going to share a couple of case studies from the private sector practice of how the government can sort of use those examples and maybe take them forward in this sector.